Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Bava Metzia, Daf Chaf Hey. We are going to begin on the bottom of Chaf Dalad Amud Beis by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisi. Ve'el Chayv Lahachras. So in the first Mishnah, we mentioned cases where you're able to keep it because it's hefker. The person was meyayish. Now we're going to talk about the opposite situation where you have to announce it because there's a siman. For example, matzah paris b'kli, o kli kamoshahu. Let's say you found paros in a kli, and Rashi says stam kli yesh bo siman. A typical kli does have a siman, or you just found a kli by itself, empty. For that matter, if let's say you find mois b'kis, you find money in a wallet, and that kiss has siman to the baal, o kis kamoshahu, an empty wallet. Sibori paris. Let's say you have a pile of fruit. The Gemara is going to explain that there's a siman there either by number or by the place. Sibori mois, also when it comes to money, which is piled up, as we'll discuss what exactly that's referring to. Chaf Hamad Aleph Shloisha Matbeus Ze al Gav Ze. The Gemara is going to discuss this, but basically you have three different coins, one stacked on top of the other. It couldn't have just fallen that way. It was probably put down that way, and therefore because of that, that person was not miyayish. And then the Mishnah concludes with kriches b'rishus yachid. We have these bundles in rishus yachid v'kikaros shel ba'al bayis. When it comes to bread that is made by bayis, as opposed to, as we said, by a nachtam, a baker, in which there is no siman. Here, a baal bayis has a particular way of making their bread. And for that matter, when it comes to these wools, which are purchased from the house from an uman, from a worker, kadi yain v'kadi shemen, or when it comes to the barrels of wine and oil, as we saw previous daf, it's referring to a situation where it's sealed with a unique stopper. All of them you're obligated to announce, again, because it has what's called a roisham. It's when it's resealed. So now the Gemara understands. Taima the matzah paris b'kli mos b'kli. The only reason why you're chayv l'hachras is because you found fruits in a kli or money in a wallet. Let's say hakli. Let's say you found a kli ulafana of paris, and in front of it is fruit. It's not, the fruit's not in the basket, but it's next to it. Or for that matter, let's say you found hakli ulafana paris, kis ulafana mois. You have a wallet and there's money in front of it. The money's not in it, but near it. You can keep it. Again, obviously, we're talking about the money. So Tanina lahad the. So we actually have a brace in support of this. Matzakli ulafana peros, kis ulafana mois. Again, beferish, it says you can keep it. Miksasan b'kli, miksasan al gabi karka. What happens if some of it is in? You have some fruit in the basket, but then you have some fruit that's lying on the ground. The question is, the fruits that fell on the ground, is it connected? Were they from the basket? Or are they not from the basket? For that matter, miksasan b'kis, miksasan al gabi karka. Let's say you have some money in the wallet, and there's some money which is out of the wallet. So chayv l'hachras, you have to announce it. You can't keep that money, again, the money which is on the land, on the karka. Fine. So in this, the Gemara asks a question. Minhu, they'll ask a stira. Matzah davar shem bo siman. Let's say you found something which has no siman, like money or fruit. Beside davar sheish bo siman, and it's next to something which does have a siman, like a kli or a kis. Chayv l'hachras. It says beferish, you do have to announce it. So that's the clear stira. It says that you do have to announce if you have something with a siman next to something without a siman, you have to chayv l'hachras. Baal siman, let's say the Baal comes and produces a siman, but not the lashon, and he takes such as his, zachalo b'davar shein bo siman. So then you can be zeicha to keep the other thing without a siman. So basically, if all he does was he mentions, I lost a kli or a kis, but he doesn't mention anything about the money or the fruit, then obviously you can keep those things. But the point is that you have to chayv l'hachras. You don't get to keep it if the fruit fell out or if the money is lying outside of it. So Amram Zvid lo kasha, we have a few answers. Ha b'kuba v'kisna. One is referring to a barrel and flax. Bitsana uperi. One is a basket and fruit. So how does this answer the question? So Rashi says like this: Bakuba v'kisna, regarding a barrel and flax, gigas mutelas upishtin lefaneha. So again, you have this barrel, and next to it is flax. Devadai hai pishtan la makuba nafal. In that situation, we're certain that the flax did not come from this barrel. De'imi na nafal, if it would have fallen, havi mishtayerba, there would have been some remnants of the flax in the kli. So we examine the kli, and you don't see any flax. Now, and he says, "V'hu adin l'kis l'fana mois v'hai taima." V'hadetani chayev. Why would you be chayev? B'tsanu peri. It's a basket with fruit. Diavidi the shark even nafli minei kulu. If a basket falls and it's filled with a bunch of apples, every single apple could fall out of it. So therefore, the fact that the basket has no fruit in it doesn't mean that the fruit that is lying on the ground is independent. No, it may have fallen from this basket, and therefore you have to announce it just in case. However, when it comes to something like flax, in which you would certainly some of it would have stayed in the barrel, or you would be able to see some of it, if it's leftovers, some of the broken pieces would be in the barrel. So then the fact that you see nothing, obviously it's independent. And you can keep the flax. That's answer number one. Rapapa oimer, no. Haba sanu peri. Both cases with fruits. So then how do we answer the question? Do you have to announce it or not? Lokasha. Hadishtayr bamidi, hadolishtair bamidi, which is basically what we said before. If there's any fruit that's left in the basket, that could be a raya that the fruit which is outside the basket may also come from the basket. However, if there's none in the basket, so then in that situation, you don't have to announce anything. Look in the basket, there's nothing there. And all the fruit is lying on the ground. So then, again, why would you have to announce it? Lokasha. One is when the opening of the basket is facing the fruit, where the basket is not facing the fruit. So, based on logic, if you examine the basket, and the basket is, the opening is facing toward where the fruits fell, so you can understand probably what happened. The person dropped this basket full of fruit, and it fell, and you can see what happened. That it fell and it went this way. However, if the basket is facing a totally different direction, the opening, and all that is facing the fruit is the end, the closed part, the back, the bottom, so then it probably didn't fall from there. Again, who knows? Again, this is why it's not necessarily the case, because, as we're going to say another teretz, is because, well, a basket could have rolled. It could have fallen out, and then it could have turned around, or the wind could have moved it. But anyway, this is the third answer. They're facing What is if it has a rim, says Rashi. We said most baskets have a rim, that's doubled over. There would have been something remaining in it. Oganin ma'akvile. It would have held it back. So basically what we're saying is that if there's a rim, so then it's a raya that probably these fruits are not connected to the basket, because the rim would have caught some of the fruits from rolling out. Therefore, if there's no fruits in the basket, it's probably not that it came from this basket. But if there are no rims, then it's possible that because it was smooth, the fruits could have easily rolled out, and therefore chayv l'hachros. Okay, so those are multiple different approaches and answers to this question. Okay. All right, good. Weiter. No questions. So tziburi peres, tziburi mois. So if you have fruits or money which is together, not spread out, then you have to announce it. So shmamina minyan havi siman. So when it comes to, and this is going to end up being question TB11. Tziburi peres, chayv l'hachros, mahu siman sheish mitzuri peres. So let me just mark this down. Chav hey amud aleph. This is going to be TB 11. Okay, so shmamina meaning havi siman. It must be that the siman is that a person will say, "Oh yeah, I lost 23 apples," and there's 23 apples. So therefore, meaning is a siman. No tani, no insert. Maybe meaning is not a siman. Sibur paris, one pile. It's just one pile, not sibure, but one pile, and therefore it has nothing to do with the number. So shmamina makam havi siman. Therefore, we could see that the place is a siman by you knowing where it happened, right? So that would be a siman. Havi siman. No tani sibure paris. So it's kind of like going full circle. So the answer is either makam or minyan, which is the same question, I believe, is question 10. So question 10, either again makom or minyan. Okay. All right, so it's not a raya either way, but it's got to be one of the two. All right. Shloisham matbeyo zel gavzeh. So let's say you have 3 coins stacked one on top of the other. So that, as the Mishnah said on the very top of the Psalm, that's considered to be a siman. So Omer Rabbi Yitzchak migdalah, v'hu sha'isen k'migdolin. It has to be like a tower. It can't be that like one is like dangling off. It has to be that they're on top, one top of each other like a tower. If the money's spread out, you can keep it. If it's like a tower, then you have to announce it. This is an example of something which is like a tower. 3 coins, one on top of the other. Money's scattered. Says Rashi, mixas zu al chaverto, mixas al gabi karka. If some of it is on its another coin, the other one is, but half of the coin is touching the ground, that would still work because that's not mufuzaros. So it would still apparently be enough to be chayv hachros. And masefa asun kimigdolin, if it's a tower, chayv hachros ha mishal shalchufe haryo shalo. So Tana Kol Shein Asun Kamigdol, and any coins which are not stacked like a tower is Mefuzaris Karyole. It's considered like they're spread out. So even if they're touching them partially, but since part of it is not entirely resting on the coin below it, then that will be you can keep it. Rav Chanina. Lo Shanu, the only time we said all this is Dafka Ela Shel Shloishim Malachim. We're talking about 3 kings. Says Rashi, what does that mean, 3 kings? So in the Havamina, it means Shlo Hayasari Sehin Shavos. Their images are not the same. Shekol Melech Kaisev Shemo. Everyone writes their name. Lusaraso al Matmeh Shaloi. And it's surah on each coin. So we're talking about 3 different types of coins. So we're going to understand what this means in a second. So in the Havamina, it sounds like maybe they're the same size, but they're just different from different currencies, a yen, a shekel, and a quarter from the United States. If they are from the same, let's say, at least it's the Havamina, let's say it's the same currency, so you don't have to announce it. It doesn't make any sense. If they're stacked up, it's obvious that it was done as a siman. They were stacked up one on top of the other. If it's not like a tower, what's the difference of where these coins come from? The reality is, if they're not stacked properly, so then that's not a siman. So what does it matter if it's shlosh malachim? What does that mean? Elimar hachimar lo shol el shol melchacha kein shlosh malachim. What does that mean? Kein shlosh malachim. So Rashi says, Kloimer, nefil hein shol melchachad shesur shlosh and shava. Even if the tzura of the coin is the same, the hein kein shlosh malachim shechalukin barchavan. Their width is different. The diamond gimel matbeyes. It looks like three different coins. So maybe you would compare it to, you have a quarter on the bottom, and then you have a nickel above it, which is slightly smaller than a quarter, and then a dime, which is on top of the nickel, which is even smaller, okay? So that's what it's referring to. So it has to be that not only are they stacked, but it has to be stacked in a way in which the bottom, almost like a pyramid, is bigger, and then it gets smaller as it goes up. That's what it means. We'll see the parentheses. So, what does it mean? It's made like a tower. This is as we explained. Ravicha tata. The widest coin is on the bottom. The Metzia ilui. The middle-sized coin is in the middle, and the Vazuta luhi Metzia. And then the bottom one is above them all. So what do we see? The Amrinan Anuchi Anchinhu. It must be he put it this way. It has to be. Why would he have stacked them in this exact manner? It must be he was done this way. If let's say all of them are the same width, let's say they stacked 3/4. Even they're on top of one another, you can keep them. It could be they just fell that way. So let's say, for example, you have a roll of quarters, or if they're the exact same, sometimes because they're identical, they could be a little bit sticky to one another because they're exactly the same. So the fact that they're stacked up exactly the same does not necessarily prove anything, and therefore you would not be able to keep. You would be able to keep them. No, if you have 3/4 stacked up, you can also keep them. So my machers. So what would you announce? So you would announce and you would ask for a minion for them to figure out how many coins were stacked. So my ear is shleish talasa. Why 3? Filtranami should even be 2. So Ravina tiva machers. Actually, what you do is you announce the tiva. Says Rashi, matbeos mitzase. I found coins. Hilkach trei lav simanahu. That will not be enough. Demiat matbeos beis. So if you say I found matbeos, so matbeos means you found at least 2. So 2 will not work when it comes to minion. So therefore, that's why 3 is necessary. So fine. So Ravina tiva machers. By Rav Yirmiyah. So now he starts asking other questions. Kashir mahu. What if you make it like a bracelet, which Rashi says mutolan beigul kitzada, that it's like round, that it's in a circle. Is that done deliberately? Kishura mahu. What if it's in a nice row, one next to the other? Kachatsuva mahu. What if it's like a tripod that you have basically 2 coins, or Rashi has it kizeh, one small one and then 2 above it, or maybe the other way around. Kitsua mahu, like a ladder that the majority of it is on the bottom, and then you have the next coin above it is partially above, but not completely, and then the next coin is partially on the second coin, but not completely, and so on and so forth. So what's the answer? So Pashit Mehachada, we can answer 1. If you could put a twig between them, and take them at the same time, says Rashi, it's considered like a ladder that it can be taken b'vasachas. So basically he's saying that when it comes to the din of a ladder, because you can like stick the something in between the 2 coins, because again, one, it's partially on top of the other, so that you would also be chayv l'hachars. But otherwise, it's not so clear what the answer would be. Question 11. Hamaitzi gimel mois, 3 coins. Be'elu fanim hadim shechayv l'hachars be'ev's oifen is a plut in the Gemara. So you definitely have to announce it if you have them stacked, the widest on the bottom, and then the middle, like almost like a snowman, right? And then the top one is less. Or kitsulam, as we said, you also are chayv l'hachras. Fine. And it says also over here, kavni base kulas. The machlokas is if you have 3 coins which are the exact same in width, one stacked on top of the other, that's where there's machlokas, whether or not that actually would work. Okay. All right, let's continue. Boy Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi asked the following question as we continue to Chaf Hey Amid Beis, which is here Kavni Beis Kilus Mahu. And we just could have done this first. So what's the din of base kulis, which is markulus? The he shem of a zara, which the markulus is, again, it's shaped like 2 and then 1. Okay, so which is the reason why Rashi said before the case of kachatsuva, like a tripod, is that you just have 3 coins like this, 1, 1, and 1, like a triangle. But over here, you actually have 2 coins on the bottom and 1 in the middle on the top of it. So that's the question, right? Taisa says, "Mekana Rabbeinu Tam, the ancient Avodah Zarah Markulus." The name of the Avodah Zarah is not Markulus, Elakulus. Actually, the name of the Avodah Zarah is Kulus. Kinamrin and Hacha, because it says Kavni base Kulus. It doesn't say Markulus. So actually, the Avodah Zarah is Kulus. That's how we see here's a raya. V'adikar ba'alma Markulus. Why do we say it that way? Hainu chiluf kilus. Basically, we're flipping it. The heim karim kilus lashon shvach. That's like a praiseworthy thing. The chachamim hechlifu l'gnai lashon lag v'keles. They're doing it umar hu chiluf. The word mar is like flipping. Kamo mar dishchuta. Okay, so sometimes the word mar is the opposite. So markulus, the opposite of that which is praiseworthy. Okay. Anyway, regardless, the question is, what's the din by a base kulis? So Tashma the Sanya Matza Mois Mefuzaris. If you find monies which are scattered, we said Harishalo. Kavni base kulis chayv. So you see clearly that's the din. That not just by a sulam, but also by base kulis. Ve'elohein avni base kulis. Achas mekan v'achas mekan v'achas al gabehen. As we said, 1, 1, and then 1 above it. Tanu Rabbanan hamaitzi sell b'shuk. Person finds a coin in the marketplace. Umatza chavero, and his friend finds it. V'yarmelo shali. He says that's actually mine. So chadashihi, it's new. Neiruknisi. Rashi says Neron Kesar Kosaleha. He's saying the name of the Caesar's name on the coin. Shomelch Ploinihi, but from this king. Lomer Klum. Doesn't make any difference. He said nothing. V'od elafiu Shemo Kosavaleha. He says the name is on it. Lomer Klum. Lafish in Simon Lomatbeya. There's no simon you can give when it comes to a coin. Yomer, because we can say Dilma Afuki Afka. Maybe he spent this money, and it fell from someone else. So even though if he knows everything about this coin, that doesn't mean that's his money. Very interesting. Even though you could maybe say, I can tell you everything about this dollar, which makes it unique. I can tell you what letters on the dollar bill, if there's any scratches on it, if there's anything which is unusual. But the reason why a coin or money is not a simon is not because it's not potentially unusual. It's because you may have spent it, and maybe you had it, you studied it, and now it's gone. Now, why don't we say that when it comes to, in general, anything else that you could potentially sell? It's a good question. Says the next Mishnah. Says Masisa, Matzah Achar Hagapa. Let's say you find behind a fence. O Achar Gadar, again, another type of fence. Goizalos Mukusharim. You find these birds, and they're tied up. O Bishvilim, or they're in a path. Shibasadais in a field. Harizelu Yigabehen. We do not want you to touch any of these birds. And we'll see the reason why is because, the Gemara is going to say why. So let's hold off on that. Matzah kli bashma. What if you actually find a kli, which in itself has a simon, but you find it in a garbage heap? What's the din here? So it depends. If it was hidden, then ligabo, don't touch it, because again, we're going to see that possibly the owner put it there deliberately, hid it, and now if you move it, he's not going to be able to find it anymore because there's no simon. However, if it's open, then it may have fallen, and because no person would have deliberately put it in the way that it could easily have been spotted, so therefore noitel machos. Says the Gemara. So my taima, what's the reason why if you find these gazelles which are tied up by a fence, or for that matter by a field in a path, you shouldn't touch them? This person, the owner, actually hid them. If you end up taking it, he's not going to be able to have a simon. because he's not going to be able to prove anything. So Hilchot, the best thing you can do is nothing. Therefore, lish b'kninhu adi asim araihu v'shakolhu, leave it where you found it, so that the owner will be able to claim it back. Why do we say that if you take it, the guy's never going to be able to produce anything? It was tied up, so then let the kshira, the fact it was tied up, be a simon. So Rabbi Abba bar Zavda Amarav b'mikusharim b'kanfeihin. They were tied by the wings. The kuli alma hachi mekatrilhu. This is the way that everyone ties it. So by you doing this and taking away, you can say, oh, it's tied up by the wings. That's not a simon, because that's the normal way of kshira. Okay, we'll have you makam simon. So why don't we say makam should be a simon? So Amar Ukva Barachama bimidadin. We're talking about where these birds can be hopping, says Rashi, makam from one place to the next. So therefore, the fact that he says a place, it may not necessarily be the exact same location, and therefore it's a problem. So 1 second, if they're jumping around, then they could have come from anywhere. So mutarin, they should be mutter. What's the problem? So some will say, maybe it came from everywhere. The inish maybe the person hid it. And therefore, because of that, we are in a case of a doubt. And because it's a doubt, the Rabbi Abba bar Zavda Amarav kol savik hinuach l'chatchil don't take it. But if you did take it, then you don't have to return it, because if you return, there's no way to return it. Returning it's not going to help, because it may not belong. It may have come from somewhere else. So therefore, l'chatchil better not get involved. However, if you didn't take it, then that's it. Matzakli ba'ashba. So he said that if you find something in a kli, in a garbage heap, so it depends. If it looks it was well hidden, again, leave it alone. Or minhu matzakli tomun ba'ashba noitel machers. It says actually not like that. It says if you find it in an ashba, you should announce. Shekain derech ashba. This is the way of garbage heaps. Lipanos, that people again throw things in there. But again, it's possible that person may have went in there, they were throwing out their garbage, and they dropped something else, a kli, which they didn't mean to drop. So therefore, it says So how do we answer this? The answer says, it depends. Omer zvidlu kasha. Ha b'kubi v'kase, ha b'sekini v'hamnik. One is referring to like a hat or a cup. So those don't touch. Ha b'sekini v'hamnik. The other is referring to knives, which Rashi says, which are small. Shehin kelim katanim. Avedahin, these are lost. Sheshlicham sham im ashma shahoitziam min habayis. So it depends. Bekuvi v'kasi yiga. If they're pretty big things, don't touch them, because he probably put them there. But sekini v'hamnik are these smaller items, noitel machers, that you should announce. Okay. Papa Omer haba habikubu kasi. Really, we're talking about big things. Okasha. Haba ashma hasuli panois. Haba ashma shino hasuli panois. When it comes to an ashba, which is cleaned out, so therefore this guy is not going to leave anything there, because if he's going to leave it there, he knows it's going to end up getting cleaned out. So therefore, you're chayv l'chachros. If it's something which is generally not cleaned out, so the person may have hid it there, and therefore you should leave it there. So the second, ashmi asuli panois avidim adasi. I understand if he leaves it there and he knows it's going to be cleared out, so that's an avidim adas. He knows it's going to be completely lost. It's actually not normally cleaned out, but then it became cleaned out. Okay, so that's why he uses that language. What does that mean? It means that it cleans out small vessels, says Rashi. Min habayis shalom adas. Okay, let's look at question 12. We're going to stop there. Matzakli ba'ashba. When do you have to announce? So either when we're dealing with kelim katanim, small vessels like sekini v'hamnik, these knives. He probably dropped it without his knowledge, and therefore you have to announce it. Or we could be talking about bigger items like Bikuvi Vikasi, it's something which is a garbage can which is not usually cleaned out, and all of a sudden they're about to clean it out. So because it's so he left it there, hoping to claim it back. But now that it's about to be cleaned out, so therefore you better announce it, because otherwise it's going to be completely lost. Now let's see if there's any more questions. TA 11. Matzah achar hagapa gozos mekasharim lo yigabehen. So if you find these birds that are tied up, madua lo yiga, why not touch them? Madua in kesher hamakom simin. Okay, so this is a good question. Lo yiga mishum safik hinuach. Given the in bo simin yafsidu habal, the in hakesher hamakoim simin the iri b'mekusharim b'kanfein b'medad. So therefore, because they jump around, so makom is not a simin, and also again this is TA 11. Because so we say harizelu yigabehen, because it was tied by its wings. So we say because it's tied by its wings, so that's a normal way of tying it, and therefore the kesher is not going to be a siman, because that's the normal way of doing it. So therefore that's not going to be anything. Again, also mimedadin, so if it's hopping around, so therefore again in that situation it's not going to be a makkah will not help, and therefore it's a safek hinuach, and kol safek hinuach achatal lo yitayil. However, im nata, if you did take which you shouldn't have, lo yachser. Question TB12. Matzah shloisha matbeis demishachalufe shalchufe, if they're like stacked partially on. O betzulam im chayv lahachars. So I said im zal gabze b'sholosh malchiyos shemat beis lo shavim ze chayv lahachars, because sulam gam chayv lahachars, but shachlufe is not. You would not announce, because it's only when it is, as we said over here, it's dafka if it's mamish kimigdolim. However, if it's not migdolim, then it's considered mufuzoris korele. So tana kol she'ein asun kimigdolim mufuzoris korele. So therefore, if it's mashlufe shalchufe, so in that then would not be, you would be able to keep it, because it's not considered like it's stacked. However, when it comes to a sulam, as we said, the din is that chayav l'hachris. So it says chayav l'hachris, just because you could take a kesam, beineham, a twig between them, then that would be enough to be chayav l'hachris. Adkan.